We have a lot of traditions in our family during Christmas time, and one of those traditions is watching Christmas specials together. We love our Christmas specials. And that's a tradition that a lot of families actually observe. One of my newest favorite Christmas specials, and I add it to my very, very long list of favorite Christmas specials, is It's a SpongeBob Christmas. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, SpongeBob Christmas? But hear me out. First and foremost, I'm kind of a SpongeBob geek. I love SpongeBob. And I love the style of the show, the animation, the style of the drawing, the humor. It kind of reminds me of one of my favorite cartoons, which is Ren and Stimpy. So it's got that going for it right off the bat. But honestly, probably my favorite part of this special is its main theme song, which is Don't Be a Jerk, It's Christmas. Now, it's a real catchy tune, first and foremost. And I dare you to go to YouTube and listen to it and see if you can't not hum it the rest of the day. I bet you can't, and sorry in advance. But the lyrics also talk about things that we should be doing during Christmas and things that we should not be doing during Christmas. And some of those things that we should not be doing during Christmas are things like don't have more than 10 things in the express checkout lane, or leaving the toilet seat up, or not using your turn signal. My favorite line, though, comes at the very beginning, and I think it's actually pretty important to kind of keep in mind. It says this: bring joy to the world, it's the thing to do, but the world does not revolve around you. Don't be a jerk, it's Christmas. Now, Christmas is a very sacred holiday for Christians. Matter of fact, it's so sacred that Christians sometimes go a little overboard in attempts to keep it that way, to keep it sacred, to the point of sometimes to like heated debate or like anger and fighting. But anyway, most Christmases kind of seem to have an emphasis on trying to be nicer and kinder and more loving toward our fellow human beings. Like not punching someone in the face, fighting over the last ham in the grocery store, or completely running over somebody in the toy store trying to grab that elusive toy, stuff like that. But unfortunately, I'm not sure I see a real huge difference between how we typically treat each other during Christmas versus the other 11 months of the year. So there's another Christmas special that our family never, ever, ever misses, and that is A Muppet Christmas Carol. It's definitely one of our favorites. It's obviously an adaptation of A Christmas Carol, kind of done Muppet style, and we just love it. And there's a song in there that I actually really like as well, and it's called It Feels Like Christmas. A section of the lyrics say this: it is the season of the heart, a special time of caring, the ways of love made clear. And it is the season of the Spirit. The message, if we hear it, is to make it last all year. And that part of the song actually kind of goes along with what I'm saying here, is that not only we try to, be more nicer or kinder during December, which very rarely happens, we also try to make it last all year long, which is basically the goal, or as the lyrics say, the message if we hear it. But since it's hard enough to be nicer and kinder and more loving during Christmas, how in the world do we make that last longer? I mean, like all year long. And the simple answer to that is we can't. There's absolutely nothing we can do to be nicer, to be kinder, to be more loving. Those attributes, they don't just come along just because we sit down and write a list of things that we want to do or not do. I mean, I can't be nicer if I'm just not nice. I can't be kinder if I'm just not kind. Doing random acts of kindness is great for the moment, but if I'm not kind, down deep, through and through, then the moment just remains a moment. And it doesn't last. The only way for us to be nicer and kinder and more loving is for us to actually become those things. We have to become something different than what we already are. We have to be transformed into something that is nice. We have to be transformed into something that is kind, and also into something that is love. There are two scriptures that immediately come to mind. The first one is in Romans chapter 12, verses 1 and 2, and it says this: I plead with you to give your bodies to God because of all he has done for you. Let them be a living and holy sacrifice, the kind he will find acceptable. This is truly the way to worship him. Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. And then also in Galatians chapter 2, verses 19 through 20, that says this: what actually took place is this: I tried keeping rules and working my head off to please God, and it didn't work. So I quit being a lawman so that I could be God's man. Christ's life showed me how and enabled me to do it. I identified myself completely with him. Indeed, I have been crucified with Christ. My ego is no longer central. It's no longer important that I appear righteous before you or have your good opinion, and I'm no longer driven to impress God. Christ lives in me. The life you see me living is not mine, but it is lived by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. The key is not trying to be nicer or trying to be kinder or trying to be more loving, because all that trying doesn't really do anything for you. It just doesn't really last. The key then is actually allowing God to transform you into being his. Transformed into someone who has God living right here on the inside. So you become nicer because you are nice. You become kinder because you are kind. You become selfless and caring and loving because the God who is selfless and caring and loving now lives inside you. And that changes things. It really drastically changes things. And it honestly changes the way that you and I think and live. So, speaking of A Christmas Carol, I know there are a lot of movie and TV adaptations out there, but if you haven't read the actual book, you really should. Obviously, there is one main character we all know. His name is Ebenezer Scrooge. What a classic character name, huh? This is a short story of one person's journey through transformation. Scrooge takes 3 trips in one night with ghost guides to help him gain some perspective on life. He's able to clearly see the truth that plays out right in front of him. Life then takes on a whole new meaning in the light of this truth. And he understands for the very first time that life is incredibly precious, and so are those who live it. Christmas isn't just Jesus' birthday. It's a memorial for what has been given to us, a gift. And that gift is summed up in one simple word: truth. A perspective to understand and to adopt. Only through God can we gain that actual perspective, the truth, which comes via surrender. Even Jesus followed this path. In Philippians 2, it says this: he had equal status with God, Jesus did, but he didn't think so much of himself that he had to cling to the advantages of that status no matter what. Not at all. When the time came, he set aside the privileges of deity and took on the status of a slave. He became human. Jesus' birth was less to do with royalty coming to earth and more to do with a king humbling himself to become a human, to better understand life and those who live it. So realizing that truth typically has a dramatic, life-altering effect. Jesus surrendered to his Father's will, his way. And this is also an invitation for us to do exactly the same thing. And that is the message of Christmas, following Jesus' example of his love for his Father. Well, we can't be nicer, and we can't be kinder, and we can't be more loving. It turns out we actually have to become those things. And that only happens by allowing God to come in here and live inside of us and through us, by surrendering to a much deeper and more meaningful truth than we'll ever experience in our whole lives. So instead of just during Christmas, how about each and every day of our lives, we allow God to come in and make us into the people that He wants us to be? Because that is actually the main message of Christmas, if we'll hear it.